Welcome back to El Paso Knives. Today I am working on a knife right now for a customer by the name of Danny out of North Carolina. He wants a hunter, particularly a hunter with like a skinning edge. And so this has to be sharp, but it's got to be tough. I've talked to him on the phone. I'm going to make these as close as possible to the specifications that he's looking for. This knife is based off of my Borderland design. You can find that on my website in the gallery, see what the finished product is. And so I'm going to work this for Danny and get it out to him once it's completed. So the blade's already been profiled, it's already been heat treated, it's got about an 80% grind on it. So I got to do the finishing work on this knife, get some scales on it, put the final edge, and make the sheath for it. So before we get back into knife business, I just want to take a few minutes to discuss an upcoming day that's very important and near and dear to my heart, and that's Veterans Day. So Veterans Day is next week on November the 11th. It used to be called Armistice Day. Now it's Veterans Day. The date is set for all veterans who have served our great country in uniform. And so whether you're a combat veteran or volunteered, did their enlistment 3-4 years, you rose your right hand, you took that oath that you were in uniform, supported everything that our military does for this great nation. I really want to take my hat off for all the veterans out there. Continue to serve your communities and your country in other ways. I serve with the Veterans of Foreign Wars at my local post. I'm active. It's a great organization that I believe in. There's a lot of misconceptions about the Veterans of Foreign Wars. Yes, we get together and drink a cold one, but it's more than that. We help the community out in a variety of ways. We do charity work. We clean up memorials. We replace flags at cemeteries. We bury our dead. We provide the honor guards. We march in parades. We give monetary donations to youth groups. We support scouting. My VFW post alone supports 6 Scouting America units and 1 Girl Scout unit. And so we're trying to extend that patriotism to the next generation, and it's very critical and very important. There aren't too many organizations out there today that teach love of country, love of your citizenship, our constitutional rights. Scouting is a tremendous way of doing that. They also give back to the community. As a veteran, I'm looking at you all who are veterans and are not, and are out of uniform, or perhaps you're still in uniform. Visit your local VFW, your Veterans of Foreign War. Or if you don't qualify for the VFW, then perhaps you'll qualify for like the American Legion. If you're not a veteran, there's things and ways that you can give back on Veterans Day to recognize those who have served. Sure, you can have a bumper sticker on your truck that says, "I support our veterans." That's fine and dandy. You know, we appreciate that. But there's other ways you can do. Find your local veterans group. Find out if they're having a Veterans Day ceremony. Go take a visit. Go spend a few minutes at a local veterans organization or post. Get to meet those guys and gals. Find out who they are. You'll be surprised that a lot of them are everyday people in the community who are, working, teachers, law enforcement, first responders, farmers, ranchers, craftsmen, carpenters, mechanics. They're out there. You can say thank you, but your actions will speak louder than words. Just by showing that you care and that you support them by attending a Veterans Day event, a local parade if you have one, or just walking into one of these establishments and letting them know that, hey, I'm not a member, but I'm here to support you and to say thank you. That time that you spend, whether it's 10 minutes, half an hour or more, it shows that you care and that you're willing to see who these men and women are, not just as what they did in service, but who they are as everyday people. Okay, let's get on to some knife making. Okay, so here's a closer shot of the Borderland knife that I'm making for Danny in North Carolina. It's made out of 1095 high carbon steel. As I mentioned earlier, it has been already profiled, it's already been heat treated, it's already tempered. So we've got to get scales on this, clean up the grind, put on the final edge, make a leather sheath. This blade in particular, he requested at 6 inches, so we've got a 6-inch from tip to ricasso. We're going to get onto that. So really the first step I'm going to take is we're going to clean it up by taking some sandpaper and putting in some elbow grease. Here I'm just going to take some 220 grit sandpaper and I'm going to start sanding it. So you'll notice on this blade there's a little bit of texture in the steel, and with the light reflection, let's see if you can see it clearly here, but that texture is created in the forge with the heat, and because the tip is typically the thinnest portion of the steel of the blade, it gets hotter sooner. So what you see there is some of the scale that built up on it, and essentially etches the steel. So it creates kind of an interesting pattern. Some people like it. Some people want a full, satin or sanded blade. Also on the blade, you'll see kind of some dimples here, and they're filled with carbon. Those were made to straighten out the blade. The blade during heat treatment had a little bit of distortion, not much, and so I took a ball peen and then did the appropriate strikes in the appropriate area of the blade, and we straightened it out. Those I'm going to leave. It gives the knife character. It's what I've done. You'll probably see it on my previous Borderland blade that's on my website. So Danny fell in love with what he saw, and so I'm going to try to replicate that exact knife. What I'm going to do right now is switch over from 220 to 320, a little finer. I still want to maintain a satin sheen on this blade. I'm not going to darken it. I'm going to leave the carbon embedded in some of the texture, just as you see it. But I do want to get this a few grits down, so it's got just a nice satin look, not shiny, but a grayish hue to it. Gonna give it a nice classical frontier look to it. Okay, you wipe it down. Grab a paper towel. See what that looks like. Oh yeah, you can see the what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take some green scrubbing pad, Scotch Brite, just go over the blade. Okay, we'll start working on our scales. So here I've got some curly maple. I bought this in a 6-inch by 3-foot section, 1/4 inch, and it's considered thin lumber or hobby lumber. And so I prefer to buy it this way because when I design my knives, I have different handle shapes. On some I want, you know, a thicker handle, some a thinner handle. Um, I prefer a thinner handle, so you know you eliminate a lot of the bulk. That's why I go with 1/4 inch, vice 3/8. I do use 3/8, but I find myself using 1/4 inch more just to keep a nice low profile on the handle rather than buying individual knife scales. And I'll show you an example of what I mean here. So this is some Purple Heart. This is an individual knife scale. I believe it's like 5 inches by 1.5 inches. This is 3/8. So this is a lot thicker than this curly maple. And so I'm going with this. And for those of you that make knives or want to make knives, you can really find value in buying larger sections of wood over buying individual sets of knife scales. You know, everyone's got their preference. Having scales already pre-cut can save you money and time, or should I say save you time, whereas larger sections of cuts will save you money in terms of materials and supplies. Just a tip there. So let's go ahead and work on this pair of scales here. So I'm going to grab a ruler, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to outline a straight line as possible. That's the forward edge of my scales. And so I am going to put the scale all the way over the finger guard, so it's going to go right about there. So I'll trace. Try to keep my fat hands out of the way. Flip it over. Try to line everything up. Move just a tad there. Okay, there's our scales. So now I'll go over to the scroll saw, cut this straight, and trim out our two scales, curly maple. We've got our scales cut out, rough cuts. You know, again, leave yourself a little bit of extra. It'll all get sanded down anyways. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sand the front edge of our scales. Just so they're smooth. And just do a very gentle on the edges on the front. And what we want is just a nice clean look around the front edge of the scale. And I'll do the same to the other side. Okay, got our pair there. Got our knife. Time to get our glue and start our glue up. And I think I'm almost done with this bottle here, so I may need to break into a new bottle. So while I'm doing this, when I came into the shop, I'll tell you a quick story. When I came into the shop today, I noticed I had forgotten a bag of sunflower seeds. And being that this is a wooden shed on the back side of my property, had the field mice get into it. So when I showed up, it looked like a party took place. I had sunflower seeds all over this tabletop, and I'm sure that they're nice, fat, and happy. So I'm gonna have to lay an ambush for them, I think, tonight, and make sure they don't get too comfortable in here. So I'm gonna have to lay down a trap. So probably use a little bit of peanut butter. That works pretty well, and we'll see what the kill count's gonna be tomorrow. Okay, so we're just pressing down there. Just making sure our front edge gets nice pressed in there. And we'll put one in the center. And we're going to let that sit for about 2-3 minutes. Just coming back from this side here. There we go. Get that second scale on there. Drilled all my mounting holes, 1/8 of an inch for the small ones, 1/4 inch for the lanyard hole. Make sure we got good coverage and alignment. Alignment looks good up front. That's pretty important. Got plenty of leftover wood on the outside. I think we're matched up pretty nicely. So let's apply our clamps. Let it set for a few. Okay, so we've come off the drill bit, or the drill press. I'm gonna just clean up the scales with 120, just doing some light sanding. Take off any burrs. Grab our jeweler's anvil. Grab our hardware. Alright, let's set our pins. So I'm going to start here with the front. Try to set this in there, line it up. Hammer that in there nice and gently. Go over to our hardy hole. We want about 1/8 of an inch out protrusion. Trim. Repeat. There we go. One more. And we've got all of our pins mounted onto the grinder. Alright, let's do this. Another good teaching moment. So here we've got a pin that's going back and forth. So if you have that problem, then what you want to do is you want to go in and peen it on an anvil so that it spreads just enough to where it's catching the scale and the steel. So the other ones are good, but we'll do that now. So here I just got a section of track I'm going to use as my anvil for this purpose. You just want to do it gently so you're not splitting the wood. So that should keep it in place. Okay, so these are the rough scales off the belt sander. Now to get into these curved areas, get this nice and smooth and shaped, I'm going to use my angle grinder with the flap disc on it. So here I'm making a special custom handle for him. So this extra deep finger notch here is going to give him the best control when he's skinning and working an animal. He can pinch his trigger finger, his pointer finger, and his thumb if he needs to. His fingers are not going to slide forward with a good deep guard. He'll have good control. And so we just got to finish this and get the final edge on. Okay, so this is what we're going to do, our fine sanding. I'm going to start off with 120 grit and use my hands just to clean all the contouring so it's nice and smooth. Okay, so I've completed the 120 sand down. Now I'm going to go to 220. And this is just to clean up the grain, take out any deep sanding marks. And at this point, I'm trying to just go with the grain. You don't want to go against it. That way you don't see it after you've treated your scales and you finish the product. You can see all the grain just going front to back. This curly maple's pretty. The beautiful thing about knife making is you use a variety of skills. So everything from blacksmithing, metalworking, fabrication, woodwork, leatherwork. It really is a multi-skill, trade or hobby, whatever you want to call it. And I like that. You give variety. You're not just working with metal all day, not working with wood all day, working, with each item in segmented small amounts. You get to apply your artistic vision in each to create a final product. I think that's what really draws me to knife making and enjoyment I get. And again, each knife is its own challenge. Every one of them presents a unique challenge that you'll come across, and that's when you got to go into problem-solving mode. If it's a design problem or a scale, handle problem, steel problem, and sometimes you just got to start all over again. But that's okay. That's how you learn. Mistakes are the best teacher. Okay, I think I've got this where I want it. Alright, so what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to apply some flame to it. So I'm grabbing my torch here, and I'm going to flame lick the scales, and you'll see what heat does to the curly maple. Okay, and I think that's about where I want it. So you don't want to get too close with the torch. Remember, you've got glue underneath, and heat and glue don't do too well with each other. So you don't want to apply too much direct heat for too long. So let me put this away. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our 220, and we're just going to give it a light sanding again. And some of this black, charcoaly carbon will come off. But when you sand it, you start getting real nice tones, darker tones. You start seeing some of the tiger striping, some of the in the curly maple. So we just want to get it down. When you sand it, it blends it in. Another positive thing is it burns away any wood burrs you might have in your lanyard hole. So you don't really have to go in there and clean it out, which is great. A little time saver, but also makes it look good and allows it to work properly when you insert the lanyard. Just get these front edges, don't want to touch our steel. Okay, a bit more here on the grip. I can feel the warmth of the wood from the flaming. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take some dye and I'm going to go with a really light color, which is called saddle brown. And I'm just going to take a little bit and I'm just going to apply it on the wood, and it's going to soak it right in. And that's where you start getting the nice tones. The wood's just soaking it up like a sponge. That's good. You want it to penetrate. Get the front edge of the scales. Whoops, whoops. Give it another pass. Okay, so I'm gonna let that set and dry. It won't take too much time to dry. And what I'm going to do is wipe down some of the excess. So I'll just take a little bit of acetone. Just open this up. Take a little bit of acetone. Put it on some paper towel. Just to wipe down. You could also use painter's tape, to seal it off. I do that sometimes. Wipe down the spine. Put a little bit more acetone. Oops.
So my acetone so it doesn't evaporate. And I'm just going to give the whole set of scales a wipe down. Just kind of back and forth. Make sure there's no excess of anything, so wipe down my surface. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take some of this Scotch Brite scouring pad, just start going over the wood. A little gently, not too much pressure. So this has almost like a sanding effect. It's an abrasive, just gentle. This gives it a nice soft texture. Takes down any previous grits that were at a lower number. Let's take those away. And then as you put a little bit more pressure, you can lighten it up a bit. So if you think you flame licked it a little much, then you can just apply a little bit more pressure and it'll take some of that darkness away, bring some of the lighter wood to the front. And then if you get it too light, well, you go back and apply more of the dye, the stain, and you know, work with that and see if that's the tone and colors you want. You could go back to the torch, but I wouldn't recommend putting too much heat. So by me doing this here, it's really making that wood nice, smooth, has almost a buffing effect on it. Should we get the back? It's feeling much better. Okay, once I do that, I transition from the scouring pad to some steel wool. And I'll just take the steel wool, do the same thing. Just nice and easy, not too much pressure. And this is even finer than the scouring pad. Get that wood really nice and soft and nice texture. It's going to feel soft and warm in the hand. You're going to feel that natural wood. This helps kind of blend in all the different tones, the darks, the lights. You can already see some of that tiger striping really pop. It's one of my favorite woods, curly maple. Wipe away some of this residue here. You don't want to taint your work. It's always a challenge keeping the workspace clean. So that feels good. It feels smooth. Really nice on the hand. Okay, so now the last thing I do is apply boiled linseed oil. So I have some here in this little container. I think it was a Crystal Light, drink mix container. And I just put some boiled linseed oil in there. Here, I'll adjust the camera so you can see a little better. So I'll just take it and I'll just dunk the handle in there. Make sure that linseed oil gets in there. I'll let it set in there to absorb it. And that's going to penetrate into the wood. And not only is it going to preserve and protect, but it's going to give us a real nice, beautiful golden hue to the wood. And it's going to give it an even softer texture when you grip the knife. Absolutely stunning. Just the colors. Almost three-dimensional when you look at it. Move it back and forth. Okay, I'll let that sit for about a minute. Okay, so it's been soaking for a minute or so. And what I like doing is letting it soak. I don't really want to wipe this down, so I'm going to let as much of the leftover BLO, the boiled linseed oil, drip off back into the container so I can reuse it. And then you get to a point where it's just dripping slowly, or not much at all. And that's when I'll go ahead and put the lid back on the container. And I'm going to leave that extra BLO on the knife handle. And I'm just going to let it set. That way the wood absorbs as much of that BLO as possible. You want it to penetrate. You got to make sure you get your front edge. And you'll know when it's penetrating because it'll go from a super glossy to a satin where the wood is just absorbing that BLO. So I'll set this aside. And just let it soak in for a little while. A few closer shots of the scales on this knife. The blade. Alright, so we've given it some time. It looks like the BLO has mostly been absorbed by the wood. So now I'm going to take this over to my buffer and I'm going to buff the scales just to give it an even softer touch and close up any grain, any sanding or scouring marks that might still be on the blade. So let's do that. Okay, so I've got my buffer here. It's operated with a foot pedal. Highly recommend that. One, to control your power on and off. This can be one of the most dangerous tools in the shop. Grab a blade, fling it into your face. So definitely want to make sure you got face protection when you're doing this. And you don't want the blade to get up underneath your wheel. Keep it out front or right down at about the 7-8 o'clock position. All right, let's go. Alright. I like it. So this is after buffing our curly maple scales. It's got a nice, soft satin sheen to it. I put a small layer of BLO on it just to allow it to penetrate even more. And so it's a great, great natural grip. Lots of control. I can choke up on it real good. And I can feel all, 4 of my longer fingers getting a good wrap on the knife. I've got contact with the meaty portion of my palm, and that's what you want. Okay, so good fit, good scale, and now I've got to go in and put in the final edge and get working on the sheath. See the edge that was put on this blade. So now I'm just going to run it on some stone and strop it. A little bit of oil. Move the camera just a notch right there. Okay. Alright, so we're going to test the sharpness on this on our best certified machine. And we are zeroed out. Place the blade in the fulcrum. Slow, steady pressure. And we got 185. That's sub 200, which is a utility razor sharp. So 200 grams is a utility razor sharp. We got below that. We're at 185 grams of pressure to break the media. It's pretty good. Okay, now that we've completed the best test, we're going to try to simulate something you might find cutting an animal, skinning. So this is rawhide. I mean, it's dry and it's pretty hard. So with a skinning knife, you know, one of the biggest fears you have is striking bone and chipping your blade. And so the design of this blade, I made it robust enough to, you know, be able to survive rough use. So here I'm just going to use this to cut this rawhide and show how sharp it is, and make sure it's going to be on the camera. So that's rawhide. No deformation of the blade. Then I'm going to take some bone. Let's try this here. So we've got some bone here. Right up against our antler tip. No deformation, no chips. Now let's see, I'm going to reach down in the trash here and grab some paper and see how she does. Still cuts, even after pounding on bone. So I'm hoping Danny likes it. I know he's really excited. His wife has conveyed that to me. So let me just make a leather sheath for him, and we'll get this blade out to North Carolina.
Okay, so this is where I'm at with the sheath. I created my template and cut out a piece of leather, did all my edging work, applied the copper rivet to the belt loop, dyed it, and then I added some embellishments, silver on the sheath itself, just to give it a nice frontier look to it. So I also embossed, stamped my handmade stamp basically on the leather. And so all I have left to do here is to do stitching, and it'll be done.
now I'm just going to burnish the edge of the sheath. Okay, time to put our edge coat. Okay, we'll just let that dry. Alright, I'm going to put some finishing touches on the blade. Just drop it a little bit. Make sure it's nice and sharp. This blade's got pretty good edge. Oh yeah, that's sharp. He still needs a little bit more stropping. So this is the completed Borderland knife that I made for Danny out in North Carolina, with curly maples, 1095 high carbon steel, 6-inch blade, handcrafted leather sheath. So we finished building the Borderland knife for Danny out in North Carolina. Danny, if you're watching this, I hope you like it and it meets your needs. I had a good time building it, and I hope all the viewership learned something, or at least inspired them to go out and perhaps make a knife or do something with your hands. And then lastly, remember our veterans who have served our country both at home and abroad. Don't forget about our youth, that next generation. They need to understand the importance of our veterans, service to country, service to your community, and I hope you continue to enjoy these videos, and please like and subscribe to my channel, and until the next video build, take care.